Hi, I'm Cthulhu's.
And I'm Shockbert.
And we're with PerseidLabs. And tonight we're going to read one of Shock's favourite short stories in the series, I guess, Monster.
Yeah, I think my favorite tale story. Yep, it is definitely. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about this, and I'm so excited that we get to do it. Monster's kind of a bit of a mysterious story. It was the last one released, and it hasn't gotten a lot of attention as well. So it's a neglected baby, but we'll go over it, and hopefully you'll see why I'm so excited about it. Just to go into the history of the story, Monster, a little bit. So it was supposed to be released with some of the other previous stories, like a while back, like when they did the little like previews of which stories would be coming out. It would be like Drew, for a high school newspaper, has a story that gets out of control. And but when the books came out, they switched out that one and then replaced it with another one, and that kept happening until finally it got released in like a Walmart exclusive edition. It's only a physical copy. The one that we have, we had to get from America.
We actually have 3 copies of it now because we had one friend who was like goes out and gets it, and then also ordered it somewhere else or something, and the 2 of them came. One of them was bashed to hell, so it was good that we had the other one. No, sorry. So one of our friends got it. It was dinged up in the mail. That was fine. That was great that they sent it. And then our other friend bought 2 copies. One to scan because they would be like breaking the spine of it to scan it, and then the other one to send over. So we now have
those
3.
Both arrived in perfect condition. The friend that sent that, I'm so grateful to them. Thank you very much.
The other friend, it wasn't them sending it.
No.
It was Walmart that sent it and just must have put it in a box with no padding, and it was all bent up. So yeah, that was their fault.
Yes, my other friend went to Walmart, picked it out, like packaged it very carefully, and arrived in beautiful condition, and also scanned each page carefully for me, so I wouldn't have to wait to read it, and sent the whole scan over to me. Yeah, so really grateful to that friend. Talking a little bit more, so there's 2 problems with Monster, which as far as why people ignored this story completely. The first is that Monster does not have any Freddy characters in it, or it doesn't have Pizzaplex, characters.
I never even thought of that. I never even thought that's why people are like, I am confused.
There's one mention at the very end that barely ties it to Freddy. So for people that are like, the books are only literal, there's no secret hidden metaphors or puzzles in them, they don't represent anything else. This was a confusing story because they were like, what did this have to do with, anything? And this is pretty much not related. It's a not related story, and there's nothing valuable in it, which I disagree with, because we do think there's hidden stuff. So there's that perspective. If you're reading it from a literal thing, there's not much for you here, but we're not going to be doing that, so you guys will see. And from a metaphor perspective,
anybody who follows our channel at this point knows that we don't read things from a literal perspective. It's too boring.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun story. So the other thing that happened, and I'm gonna keep this as clean and drama free as possible. So basically what happened was, for a while in the fandom, for about a year, there was a set of secret lore documents that were circulating, and the group that released
secret lore documents.
The group that released the documents said, don't worry about them, they're just fiction, they're just made up. But the members of the group knew that they were actually the real secret lore of Five Nights at Freddy's. And it got leaked finally that they were the true, real, secret, hidden lore. And the group finally said, yes, it's all real, it's all true. And the documents confirmed and deconfirmed a lot of major theories, and had some pretty direct lore things. And that was for about 3 days. The whole fandom was like really excited about this. And then, and the documents also included an email from Scott Cawthon himself, who said that you can just do whatever you want with this lore document, this precious secret lore document. Anyway, Scott, because everybody had been posting about it, about 3 days later, Scott posted and said, I didn't send that email. I didn't write these files. I didn't make these documents. Maybe generously Scholastic made up some kind of thing and I didn't know about it. But other than that, I don't know where these come from. I didn't write them. So, and then people contacted Scholastic and said, hey, did you write these things? And Scholastic said, no, we didn't write them either. So it was a big hoax. The group
And also, like, undeniably a hoax. Like, there are so many levels that it's a hoax. Like, I have too many things that I could point out that made it, like, incorrect.
In our opinion,
Signatures, virtual machines, the books are basically a meme, like, where they're, like, totally incorrect. I own a bunch of, like, I own, like, original uncorrected proofs from this series.
Mm-hmm.
And
we have the graphic novel, the sketchy version.
Like, yeah, we've got the sketch graphic novel and all that, and people have posted what they look like. I've done like reviews for pre-release copies, which you have through like Adobe. Like, there's an Adobe program that like restricts how long you can read them for. All that stuff. None of this stuff met any of that extant like criteria. It was all just a kind of like a joke between friends that got way out of hand, is my most generous interpretation of what it was.
In our estimation, not real. But the group continues to insist that it is real. So there is drama surrounding this. But okay, so that was just the setting. Okay, and then about a month later, almost exactly a month, about a month later, from all this happening, Monster released. And Monster is a story, and again, I'm not going to spoil.
So it had been written long before, and had been pushed back multiple times, and we'd heard it referenced, and so like it had been announced, it's going to be in this book. It would give you the brief synopsis of the 3 stories. This one was there, and then it could push back and push back and push back. So it's not like as much as like people are like, oh, this is the reaction to blah blah. No, it wasn't. It was literally a story that existed, and they pushed it back, and it just happened to be like the Telltale Heart, where people who were similarly inclined were like, this is about me.
So the story of Monster, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's about a story that gets out of control, kind of. And you can see the similarities between the situation. So people were like, this is Scott Cawthon talking about these secret files and how the story got out of control. I think, again, it was just because it was on their mind at the time. But this story, like Cthulhu said, existed and was written long before any of this kind of thing happened. It's not about. So I want to clear Monster's name of that. It's not about that. It wasn't Scott poking fun at the fans. And as soon as you read and see like maybe where we're interpreting the story and how we're coming from, I think you'll immediately see like the juicy like metaphor stuff that the story is about. Pretty much like first off the first sentence, I think. So last thing I would say is, and again, not doing into spoilers or anything, but the ending of this story kind of has on a surface level, a schmaltzy kind of like, bad things are bad, don't do drugs, kids kind of message. And so people also reacted to that like in a, okay, I guess.
Yeah, which I'm like, again, like, we have somnophobia and stuff, which have overtones of like, don't do drugs, don't get caught up in stuff or whatever. But that's just like a framework for the story they're telling. And I'm like, yeah.
I think this story goes beyond this. This is one of the most dark and twisted stories that Scott's released. It's not so. It has there seems to be a thin veneer of something like just a moralistic, simple children's story, but I think this story is very dark, and I like it for that reason. It's kind of like a Fridge Brilliance kind of story. So very excited about this. Wanted to clear its name. That's the history that we're going into with it, and hope you guys enjoy. I love this. I love this story.
Yeah, and one of the first things as well, like, we just to stress, the first couple of lines of these stories are usually very narratively significant. They're carefully chosen, and this one is like, there's something creepy about the way he smiles all the time, Drew huffed. And again, like, we have one character in this series who is defined by his smile, like to the point where it's basically a meme. Like, purple guy's face is literally his smile and little else. So immediately I'm just like, that's the line they chose. They chose that line. So yeah.
So sure, yeah. Like I said, first sentence. So first off, let's start off right off the gate about interpretations of this story, so that you can follow along where we're at with it. So the character that smiles all the time. I think William's a good bet for that, right?
Yeah.
A creepy smiling guy, and you'll see more in the story about like where that fits in. Drew, just from the name, just from no other things, who do we know who has Drew in their name? And that's Andrew, the Vengeful Spirit. So those are the interpretations.
And again, just to say, like, Andrew, the Vengeful Spirit, like, we just use like basically like again that's not saying Andrew the Vengeful Spirit as the fandom thinks of Andrew. It's the Vengeful Spirit on like a board, and then off of it one of the names is Andrew. You know what I mean? Like the best way I can describe it is like if we wrote the Vengeful Spirit, we could say like Sammy, we could say Andrew, we could say Cassidy. You know, like there's different potential things that can come off of that.
Yeah.
But it's just because I know when some people hear Andrew, they have a very this is a box of what this Andrew means. It's not what we mean when we say that.
We're not boxing it in.
No.
But I'm saying, but when Scott here is talking about this story, he is talking about the one you should not have killed.
Yeah. Which people, that's pretty clear from like different iterations that we've seen. I'd say I think that's a fair assumption. So yeah, there's something creepy about the way he smiles all the time. Drew huffed. Liam followed his friend's gaze.
So we got to interrupt again because here's another character.
Yeah, Liam.
So you may have noticed.
I wonder what Liam sounds like a part of a name, maybe.
So Liam's name sounds like the end of William.
Yeah, William.
So starting out this story, when we first read it, I wasn't sure if it was this was going to be a William character. I think what it is a William Jr. character. It's referencing his family. It's saying like this is a William's family adjacent character. So either Gregor or I say Gregory. That's who I think the crying child is. But it's either crying child or Mike.
Yeah.
And in this case, I think crying child.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think like again they say, again we've done this whole book previously. So when we're first reading the book, this is what we're looking at. So we'll be like, okay, so there's a character who smiles. Is this character potentially connected to William? And then we would see Liam and say, well, this seems to be part of William's name. Is this connected to William? And as the story pans out, then we would be like, actually, Liam seems to be kind of like, Leo, like William Jr., like one of his kids kind of thing.
But this
we're not just doing that off of just these names. It's because we've read this previously. But you'll be able to kind of follow or
we're doing our best guess to set you up for success while you're reading it, so that you have the maximum fun possible with this great
again,
wild
like,
ride of a story.
Thing. Like it's hard to explain to people. Like when we read these stories, we have fun because we're like, oh look, here's a character who's a bit like this character. He's a bit like this character, and it's not like people get really angry about parallels. But to me, like this is a new and interesting way of enjoying the story.
It doesn't have anything to do with continuity. It's just a hidden metaphor, secret story that Scott includes in all the stories, I think.
Yep. Drew was watching their boss, Mr. Button. So there's another character. This is the smiling guy.
Oh god, I hate to stop every time, but okay, let's talk about...
It's just to establish the different characters. We're not giving away anything about them, just our first kind of impressions, so you know what we're thinking.
In Sister Location, they say Mr. Afton. We get several impressions that William gets called Mr. Afton or prefers a Mr. kind of monologue, while Henry is more informal. We never even hear his last name directly referenced. Like they don't say Mr. so-and-so. It's just Henry. So I think that's another like little character trait.
Mr. Button, the nice old guy who owned Just a Pizza. Again, Just a Pizza. You know, like Just a Pizza. Like, for me, again, that's like I'm innocent gov, you know, just a pizza, you know, I'm just always like, God, like,
Mr. Burton's a pizzeria owner. Yeah.
But he's he's totally different than, what's his name? Oh my God.
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff. Well, Liam and Drew worked part-time. Drew glared at Mr. Button as he slapped his mop against the floor. The cleaning solution's lemony scent stung Liam's nostrils as he watched Drew take out his discontent on Just a Pizza's black and white herringbone floor tiles. His customary skill was carving deeper than usual grooves between his thick black eyebrows. Liam shook his head as he finished putting the last of the wooden chairs upside down on the dining room's round scarred oak tables. It was a half hour past closing. Mr. Button was tallying up.
There's so much here already. Like it's hard to like
so
every
again,
sentence.
Obviously, like the floor is Freddy's.
Black and white floor tiles
that's
from Freddy's.
That's the really distinctive black and white floors.
The thick black eyebrows is something we've seen with vengeful characters and several other. Pickle has deep black eyebrows.
Pickle has a monobrow even. I think.
Yep, he has a monobrow. The dining room scarred oak tables. The oak is very important with Henry's family.
Yeah. Liam shook his head as he finished putting the last of the wooden shelves upside down on the dining room's round scarred oak tables. It was half an hour past closing. There's clothing required all the time. Mr. Button was tallying up the day's receipts at a table in the back corner of the burgundy-walled room hunched over his old-fashioned calculator, one with thick buttons and a narrow strip of paper that printed everything entered into the machine.
So here he likes old things,
Yeah, the
old-fashioned
retro
things, and
thing.
antiques. That's another William trait.
Yeah, William has like this whole like thing where like all the stuff he likes, especially in like Help Wanted and stuff in his house and whatever, seems to be like antique and whatever.
And other stories.
And we've seen like again, like not to bring in like so like Lady F, who is now discredited, did a piece of art for Scott, and it was of a hallway that appears to be the Afton house because it was all like rabbits and stuff, and there was a kid crying in it and whatever. That was all antique stuff as well.
And Scott's talked about why antiques are important. It's because they hold old energy and haunted energy and agony specifically, which we know William was studying from Didophobia, where he does fear experiments. Sorry, I hate like this is like a capstone story, so we're gonna have to.
I know. I'm like
we've
done like one paragraph so far, and it's been like 15 minutes.
But it's such a dense, such an amazing story. I love the story.
As Drew had noticed, Mr. Button wore a peaceful smile, and he was whistling a perky tune that kept time with the clicks and whirs of the calculator.
We see him whistle in the movie.
Yeah.
William.
There's nothing wrong with being cheerful, Liam said, jumping back to avoid getting splashed by Drew's haphazard motton. Drew grumbled, "It's not natural." Liam sighed and walked away from his friend, heading towards the back of the dining room. There were still dishes to be done in the kitchen. Drew was supposed to have finished them earlier, but he'd gotten caught up on texting his girlfriend, who was obsessing over what colour tux he should rent for prom. If Drew hadn't been texting, though, he still wouldn't have been working. At least 2 or 3 times a week, Liam would find Drew scribbling in his notebook or even sitting in the break room typing on his laptop. Mr. Button was beyond patient with Drew. He usually just made a tisk sound when he caught Drew writing instead of working.
So already, we see Drew as a very creative person. He's hard at work at doing like writing and drawing and things. But the story definitely slants this already in a very negative place towards Drew. You know, it says like, what a lazy guy, writing all the time when he should be working at the pizzeria. Which is interesting. You'll see the characterization here is very interesting.
Right. Sometimes he'd say in a teasing tone, "I'm gonna have to dock your pay, my boy, if you keep that up on my time." But Mr. Button never followed through on the threat. "We had a good day today, Liam, my boy," Mr. Button said as Liam passed by. "A good day, a good day." With a flourish, Mr. Button punched one final button on the calculator. The paper spit further out. Mr. Button rubbed his bristly square chin. William has a distinctly square, like with a little like dimple on it, and nodded in satisfaction. "Great, Mr. B." Liam grinned at the old guy and found himself whistling along when Mr. Button picked up his tune again. He gave his boss a thumbs up, and Mr. B returned it enthusiastically. Short and stooped, with wispy white hair that never lay flat and tended to get wilder as the day went on.
Just rereading this, that's great for some of the stuff that happens at the end of the story.
A thumbs up. Yeah.
Starts with that. Amazing.
As the day went on, Mr. Button was kind of a funny-looking old guy. As wild as his hair was, his brows were even more chaotic. The brow hairs were long and often stuck straight out like woolly ledges above Mr. Button's big blue, slightly roomy eyes. His features were thick and rubbery. In addition to the prominent nose, he had full lips and puffy cheeks. His ears were huge, so much that his lobes flapped when he moved his head quickly.
Big ears!
He's got big ears.
Big bunny ears.
Like many elderly men, Mr. Button had a bowling ball-sized paunch that hung over the waistband of his low-slung black slacks.
He's fat.
Yeah.
Like William.
Burgundy suspenders, always burgundy, no matter what colour striped shirt he wore, held up the pants. Without the suspenders, the pants would have easily slid past Mr. Button's flat butt and skinny legs to puddle above the black and white Oxford shoes he favoured, always kept polished to a high sheen.
So we have a kind of a funny old man, a funny, charming old man character built up here for reasons of, the story wants, I think, you to find him charming and silly and just a harmless old guy.
Yeah.
But you see some pride in this, like where he's particular about his colors.
Yeah, where he always wears the
Keeps his
suspenders
shoes
and he's
shined.
got shiny shoes. Yeah. Liam brushed past a trailing ivy plant that cascaded down from the top of an antique maple hutch near the back of the restaurant. One of Liam's regular tasks was to keep all the houseplants fertilised and watered. So he keeps plants.
Mm-hmm.
I never noticed that the first time.
Nope.
Mr. Button loved his plants.
Yes.
And his antiques.
Yes.
So for people who've never read all the stuff or whatever, we've not gone through everything. But in one of the epilogues, the one that's specifically about Taggart,
Yep.
He works in a facility where he talks at length, so it's worth reading it. But basically, he talks at length about the way emotional energy impacts, like inorganic things and organic things.
It's
so he
the
talks about
first time
snowflakes and he talks about plants.
And the first time in
And
the story that we hear about agony. Like,
Yeah.
Scott hadn't talked about
Scott had
agony
never really
before.
gone into agony in anything other than superficial ways where it kind of appeared in like AR or whatever. This was a time where he really went into detail and explained like where like he's like there's been experiments where snowflakes were affected by happiness or whatever. So he looks at the snowflakes. He's like, no, snowflakes are more affected by anger and agony. All his pain poured into them.
Negative emotional energy.
Yeah, negative emotional energy. And he uses flowers as a means of measuring that. Like, literally, he has a room full of flowers. He looks after the flowers. He's like, these flowers are beautiful. I love these passion flowers especially. Whatever. He uses the flowers. And when he dies, killed by the Stitch Wraith, all the flowers have wilted.
Now, this goes also into the very first game, FNAF 1. There's a quote by a scientist that talks about...
and the garbled fifth night phone guy. The one that everybody misquotes as joy of creation.
Yeah. But it's the joy of creative service.
Yeah.
That line is from Autobiography of a Yogi, and the whole passage that line is from is actually talking about how plants, metal, and people are all kind of the same, and that they all are emotionally reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Scott's talking about emotional things, like the paper pals are haunted. Those are made out of like paper materials. The metal is haunted. Metal has a life force, according to Autobiography of a Yogi, and like flesh can be haunted. Like all these things have like trees have sap, and that's like blood, and metal kind of has the blood too. I'm not saying this like in a literal sense.
You're not saying it in a spiritual sense. This is literally what
the Autobiography
of a Yogi is
proposes.
talking about, like how like metal can be impacted by emotions and stuff. Again, it's worth having a read. I don't know where Scott got the recording of this. I don't know where he got it. Did he record it himself? Is it himself? It must have been him reading it out.
Yeah, it's
but if you look it up, it appears on like Amazon. You can have a look through it. Basically, the whole section is just him talking to his yogi master about how cool his powers are and why you can really help agriculture with these powers if you. So like again,
it's an agriculture text.
Power, emotional energy. Taggart is a parallel for William, who also uses plants' emotional energy.
Likely, if William was studying emotional energy and these texts, then William was using... What was he using to study them?
Who else do we see characters wearing flowers? Yeah. Mr. Hippo. Mr. Hippo and oh my god, my brain is not working correct.
Clown Springtrap.
Clown Springtrap, but I'm talking about like his elephant friend
Mr.
Orville. Yeah.
Orville the elephant.
So Orville and Mr. Hippo wear flowers. So does Clown Springtrap. Again, Clown Springtrap is basically wearing the red passion flower or whatever it is that they distinctly refer to in the
But the most important thing here is Mr. Burton's hobby is plants and antiques.
So not to go off on a tangent, it's just to explain why we're like, oh, antiques, flowers. That's why.
Plants and antiques is what you, as like William must have used to study agony. That's where you would start. That's what you would use. That's what those are the materials he need access to.
The two things that Taggart uses, ultimately.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's interesting. Liam also polished the old furniture that was stuffed into the dining room. The hutch was just one of many ancient cabinets and sideboards that surrounded the tables. The pizzeria looked more like the inside of a 19th century mansion
Where do we
than
see
a restaurant.
That?
So again, like...
oh god, I'm so sorry. It's every sentence. This story is the best story in the whole world.
I feel like to do it justice, we have to explain...
Much.
We have to explain
it's like
why.
a dissection of this story. I'm sorry, please. I'll let you
again, like we could just read through it and like, but that wouldn't be the point. Like we're not here to like rip off this story. We're here to talk about this story and why we care about it and what makes it interesting.
Oh man.
And so like again, we're like, oh, mansion. We think that the house we see in Help Wanted is like William's house basically looked like. Maybe some kind of exaggerated version of it, but still what his house looked like.
There's an old record player as well that says Antediluvian on it, which is like very old objects.
Yeah, here's the record player that we're talking about as well.
What does it look like? An ancient mansion. Wow, look at that.
So you can see, yes, it's supposed to be like haunted and whatever, but I think William just really likes old stuff, ultimately. Mm-hmm. That's the implication that we get, and that's the implication that we seem to have. Even the inside of the house, like... This is fairly antique looking. It's not modern. It's not
Even
even
though it's
80s.
a setup for William's experiments.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like even the little rooms that he makes are old fashioned feeling. If we look at this is the table behind where we work on Dreadbear.
It has the FNAF tile work, and then above that, skeleton keys.
Yeah, we have all this stuff. There's literally
Mad science.
Here it is, like this again, like we see elements of this constantly. There's these keys and stuff. So yeah, again, old fashioned. It just is the case. So yeah, we're seeing that here around Mr. Button. And again, like Mr. B, you could talk about Mr. Burrows as a kind of William-esque character.
Oh yeah, Burrows, yeah, Mr. Burrows.
And Mr. Burrows, obviously Burrows, rabbits.
Mr. Burton,
you know,
Mr. Burrows, Mr. Burrows only goes by Mr. Burrows. I forgot about that. Mr. Burton is just a very similar name.
Yeah, so this is like a guy who everybody thinks is just a nice guy, you know, and what we can tell, everyone thought that about William as well. You know, he was the cheery businessman and whatever. So Drew complained about all the crap that had to be maintained, but Liam thought it was cool. Just the pizza was unique. Liam pushed through the swinging door to the pizzeria's kitchen, which still smelled of browning crust and bubbling pizza sauce. He sighed. The kitchen was a mess. Drew, as usual, had been slacking off.
Good for
Drew.
This
is interesting as well. Again, like for me, like if we looked at it, so again on a broader thing, if we looked at it as like Drew is working with the other kids and whatever for William, he's not doing what he should be. Yeah, basically the way I can see
Remember, we see the sinister way. The kids all do work for William in both the novels and the movie. You can see how he uses them to kill other people. And again,
like we have connections between like the Vengeful Spirit and Cupcake and Sammy that we've talked about at length in other videos. Who's the kid who first deviates from all of the like? They're like, everyone behave. He's like, you're all small in the movie. Who's the one that bites him?
Yeah,
you know, there's one of them that's only tenuously kind of obeying him. So yeah, I just think that's interesting. But yeah, Drew is just not doing his job right. He's too busy writing, and he thinks that Mr. Button is full of something, pizza sauce. Liam dove into putting the kitchen to rights. Poor Liam as well, though. Like Liam has to like make up all the work that he didn't do. You know what I mean? Which again, if it's Mike or whatever, we assume that Mike had to like do stuff for William all the time.
But I think these are all the ghost kids that work for him.
But yeah, it could just be all of the kids. Yeah. There was no point in getting upset about the extra work. Drew was Drew, and that was that. When they were little, Drew and Liam had lived next door to each other.
What another...
Oh my god. I know, I'm sorry, we're never going to get through this story. Yeah. There are so many stories.
Henry and William were likely neighbors. There's several stories that mention this fact as well, but we see that William lives in FNAF 4 within walking distance of Fredbear's, the restaurant, and it seems like William and Henry just had like little houses next to each other and could both walk to their places where they worked.
Yeah, it just seems like that's the case, and I'll hear people say like, "No, William lived in this house, so we out in the woods. What about Midnight Motorist?" I think that William either had two houses or moved houses, but I think two houses probably. Yeah. I think he had a house near Fredbear's.
A farm.
And then a bigger house with a farm, like land attached to it, where he could have peace, you know. He could have peace to do whatever he wanted. Like
his experiments. He needed the land away from everything. It's like, in Jurassic Park. Yeah. In Jurassic Park, there's an island that's set up that's like, the island that we see is the perfect island, and then like there's the Jurassic Park 2 is about the experiment island that was supposed to be. So.
Like William needed peace to do what he was doing, away from people being able to hear screams and whatever. You can't live next door to someone. And then you're like, well, what's that screaming kid doing? You know, like, he just needs to be, like, away. And I think that's what happened, ultimately. But I do think he has a property in town, and it's next to Henry's.
And it's very likely that all the kids, like, Mike's a little older, but it's likely that Sammy, Charlie, Gregory, Elizabeth, all the Afton kids and the Henry's kids are all, like, same age-ish. All hanging out.
Yeah, and presumably they brought them to work. Like, that's the implication. Like if you work in a place that's kid-friendly, like, just bring your kids. You know, like, you don't need to get childcare. You can just bring them to the pizzeria and be like, right, go play the arcades or whatever.
I keep saying Gregory on accident. I'm trying to... Crying Child is, like, the least controversial thing. The reason we think Gregory is, like, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, but, again, it's, like, extensive reasons, but just
take your
word for it.
When I'm saying it.
Right, so... Drew and Liam would live next door to each other, and they'd been inseparable building tree forts, carving extensive roadways into the mud in their backyards for their toy cars, collecting bugs and leaves and rocks, washing down peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with glasses of cold milk. They'd done everything together. Liam started working his way through the mountain of pans and dishes as he rolled his shoulders to release the tension his memories had created. It wasn't those specific memories, actually, that bunched his muscles. It was what had come later.
It's funny as well if this is their relationship and then becoming a strained relationship. Henry and William obviously have a similar path.
Just after Drew and Liam had started middle school, they're together all the time era ended when Liam's parents sold the 2-story farmhouse.
A farmhouse?
Next door to Drew's family, massive 3-story Victorian.
The Victorian mansion, not the farmhouse in the mansion from Help Wanted. No.
Yeah, massive 3-story Victorian. Yeah, do I have a picture of the front of the farmhouse? I don't know. I do, but I don't know if I know what
Henry's
it is.
family is consistently connected with the farmhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, whereas Drew's dad was in management at the local tool manufacturing plant, the biggest employer in the small town, Liam's dad worked on the assembly lines. Over the years, his poker games with his friends and his questionable investments and business opportunities had eaten up most of his not too great salary, and Liam's mom's teaching salary couldn't make up the difference.
There's another reference to William potentially gambling with the money.
Yeah.
Basically.
Again, I think it's him citing it in his crazy experiments. You know, I think they just like gambling's the nearest thing they can do. Mm-hmm. And we usually hear Mrs. Afton described as, I think, either a nurse or a teacher. There's a couple of different iterations, but we do see, like interior designer, very kind of homemakey, like childcare, like nurturing type traditional female dominated like careers or whatever. Liam had learned more than he wanted to know about foreclosure when he was 12. And we also, again, this is just derailing everything. But basically, I think William like ran out of money at some point. We see it in like Vlad and Clara, which I think is William and Henry's relationship. I don't care if people think it's Mrs. Afton. I just don't think that's
she
the
wears
case
green.
at
She
all.
burns down a house. You know,
I could go again.
It's
I could make
boy.
another video about why I think that, but I'm not gonna. And basically, like where she's like, "I'm gonna take your car." You know, who cares about the car? William cares about his car. And then he's like, it's a rental. You know, like, I don't actually have any money. This is just to make me look richer than I am. And then she's like, well, I burned the house down. You know, like, who burns the house down? You know, like, yeah. But yeah, basically, I think William hits money troubles, has to work retail, you know, as in working at Freddy's again. So I just think he runs out of money. I think probably he was using Henry's money in the first place.
The divorce over in Security Breach, there was unused bot lines, right, from the staff family table where she talks about...
Yeah, this is the life you have chosen.
He's like, I lost my job.
Yeah.
She's like, gonna divorce him.
Yeah.
That's pretty much their path.
Yeah, he's like, I haven't lost my job, and she's like, what? And then she's like, yeah, okay, this is the life you've chosen, or whatever.
These stories are so densely packed.
I know, like, you have to...
Scott, it's a masterpiece.
I know, I'm just like,
People were like, this is an unrelated story. I'm like,
story.
Get out of here.
Like, right, so where am I? Yeah. After that, he and his parents had moved to a double-wide manufactured home at the edge of town. Liam and Drew...
It's a move to the edge of town.
Yeah, so they moved to the edge of town, which is what I thought actually happened anyway. Liam and Drew continued to hang out together, even after Liam and his parents took their ride on the financial downslide. But for the last 4 years, the friendship had been subjected to increasing strain. Liam picked up the last dish that needed washing as Drew stomped into the kitchen. Oh. He glanced over his shoulder at his friend as he scrubbed the dish clean. Can you believe it? Drew kicked the mop bucket ahead of him into the corner of the kitchen. Now he wants us to deep clean the main oven. Like, move it and degrease under it and crap. Says it hasn't been done often enough.
Drew's a very grouchy character.
I know, his friend's like doing all his work for him and he's like, God, I can't believe you have to do more work. Liam looked over at the battered stainless steel oven. Mr. B was right. It had been here for decades, since Mr. Button had first opened the restaurant and was looking pretty grungy. He says we'll all do it together. Drew curled his thin upper lip. It'll be fun. He mimicked Mr. Button's rumbly sing-song voice. He must be like, it'll be fun.
Sing song. We hear William has a melodious voice when he uses especially Spring Bonnie.
Rumbly sings out, "It'll be fun." Before Liam could respond, Mr. Button pushed into the kitchen.
Is what Vanny says, "It'll be fun"?
Are you having fun yet?
Are you having fun yet? Yeah.
Before Liam
No.
Oh.
When they have the mask conversation, and she's like, "I've made something for you."
Yeah. It'll be fun. Yeah.
Also, ovens, presumably Innard goes into an oven,
and also like watch her in my entire like rambling video about what we found, which also has ovens.
Yeah.
Before Liam could respond, Mr. Button pushed out of the kitchen. "I thought since tonight isn't a school night, it would be a good night to get this old thing spiffed up." Mr. Button gestured at the oven. "With 3 of us having a go at it, we should have it done in no time." He's literally using child labour here, like they're not even supposed to be working at this point, I don't think. "Sure thing, Mr. B," Liam said. He didn't mind staying late. What did he have to go home to anyway? Besides, he could use the extra money. Mr. B always paid them time and a half after 1 AM. Even though he didn't have to, and as usual, he always helped them with the work. He was a good boss, more than fair. I would be like, go take a run and jump off a short pier, 1 AM. They only get paid normally up until 1 AM, and then he wants them to work later. He's like, it's not a school night. You don't need to do anything other than work.
Yeah. So this is a big thing.
Again, we see Liam's perspective, which I think is much softer on Mr. Button than he really deserves sometimes, and I think that skews our perspective as a reader.
That's the point of this story. This whole story is very
it's manipulative.
It's manipulative because 100%, so keep in mind, Drew and Liam are high school students. They aren't, and there are strict high school labor laws that he's breaking here. Mr. B is not supposed to be having them working late, school night or not, and it emphasizes it there, oh, tonight's not a school night, so I can have you work as late as I want. That's not okay. None of this is really okay, but you can see how Liam smooths over it, this is fine. And Drew doesn't. And he resents Drew for not thinking this. And the story resents Drew and shows Drew as an unreasonable, grouchy guy when Drew has a point.
Yeah,
Drew has a point against capitalism.
That's one thing to bear in mind when you're when you're reading this is Liam he's very soft on Mr. B, and he lets him away with a lot of stuff that maybe he shouldn't. I think for me this story is a really good story. And especially in the current day, because it makes you saying question what you are reading. Yeah. Even when the narrator is telling you something, say, are you telling me the truth here? Is this what's really happening? Because especially in the modern day, you're going to have news sites that say this is what happened, but if you dig below the surface, you realise that it's nothing to do with what happened.
This is the conspiracy story of all conspiracy stories.
Yeah, and again, it's not even necessarily that's the problem, because on one hand, if you dig deeper, you're find the truth or whatever, but there's people who think they've dug deeper, but they've gone into conspiracy land because they've not followed actual research, protocols.
But this isn't a story about that moral lesson.
No.
Vengeful Spirit.
This question for me, this story is just it's saying be aware. Yeah. Be aware of what you're reading. Be aware of what you're being told. Liam is potentially too soft on Mr. B, and as a result, we go through the story oh, he's so nice though. Why would you do this? And you have to maybe be but he's making these high school students work late. Just because Liam doesn't have anything to go home to, I'd be go away as well. I'm going home to play computer games or something.
Also, it's probably illegal for him to be asking them to do this. Not just, it doesn't matter if Drew has something to do or not.
He'd be paying them cash in hand. He wouldn't be able to record that. Mm-hmm. Those extra hours. Not that Drew thought so. That was the crux of the growing problem between Liam and Drew. In the past few years, Drew had become petty.
He's not cooperating with the narrative.
Yeah, and again, this is so Liam,
why
do you want him to bow to what you think? It's just interesting,
Liam's being manipulated
here. Liam is being manipulated, and it's pushing him away from his friend.
Mm-hmm.
You're petty.
That's what the story's
because
about.
That's what manipulators do. They make someone feel your friends are being so unreasonable, aren't they? I had someone that I knew in my life who basically one day they turned around and they were talking to people and they were when I don't like someone, I'm extra nice to everyone else around them. And then I'm really mean to them. And when they say to their friends and stuff that person's so horrible, they sound really unreasonable and mean. And it isolates them. And that's something that people actually do. So it's worth bearing in mind, you can be manipulated by other people being nice to people around you and isolating you. You know, like, it can work. In this case, it seems to be Liam is like no longer trusts his friend's judgment because he's like, you're just being petty for some reason. You know, which is interesting. A couple years before, Drew's grandfather had passed away. The man had made a fortune in the import-export business, and he left that fortune to his 9 grandkids. Drew's share, after all the estate taxes, was over $750,000. But to Drew's chagrin, the money wasn't his outright. His grandfather had placed the money in a trust fund that would be in Drew's dad's control until Drew turned 30. The same applied to the other kids too. They were cool with it. Drew wasn't. So yeah, this is interesting. This implies that maybe, again, potentially Henry left something for his kids, you know, like...
And this entire story is a hit piece on Drew, and I think therefore Andrew and the Vengeful Spirit. It's saying, like, he's in the wrong.
Yeah.
He's just a mean guy.
He's a mean kid.
Why would he be mean to...
I always think of that, you know that meme? You know that one where it's like, grr, I hate that guy, and it's like, I'm 10 years old.
But it's part of the fun of the story, because it's good to see him in, like, a villainous, like, standpoint.
Yeah.
It's good. I like this.
Yeah, like, to me, this definitely feels like a story like William could write, you know, where he's just like, this kid is just so mean all the time, and I just don't understand.
He's writing everything.
Yeah.
I support him in all his endeavors.
Like, she's like, this guy's sweet, and he's so horrible. He's just, I don't know why kids are like this these days. So everything was an affront to Drew. No matter how well someone might treat him, he always saw what a person didn't do instead of what they did. When Drew's mother bought him clothes and cleaned his room, she was smothering him. When Drew's dad put money in Drew's college fund instead of buying Drew a new truck or paying for his cell phone bill, his dad was being a jerk. And again, yeah.
I don't think all this stuff is true about Andrew. I think, again, this is a smear piece kind of story for him. But even
then, like, we don't have the full picture, right? Like, he could have been saying to Liam, like, my mom has bought me clothes rather than letting me buy my old clothes because she doesn't like how I dress. Does that change how that is portrayed?
But I think this establishes, like, Drew's mean to his family.
No, but again, like, for me, everything is context.
Drew doesn't appreciate what he has.
Like, this is Liam saying, like, oh, he complained his mother was smothering him. Mm-hmm. The implication is that Drew doesn't have control of his own finances or his own life, potentially. Like, exactly, all his money is held by his parents. Okay. He's a teenager. Teenagers want to express themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, say he wanted to go out and buy, I don't know, like, in that era, like, goth clothes or something. And his mum was like, no, I don't think you should be doing that. I've bought you some nice clothes. And I cleaned your room. Maybe you shouldn't have those magazines.
I think as well.
You know what I mean? There's moving parts to a situation that could change its perspective. And again, like, you're talking about, like, his dad wouldn't let him get a car. He put it in his college fund. He's already got a college fund. He's got, like, $750,000.
I think to ground this realistically as well, I think Henry's family, I think, was pretty, like, nice, especially compared to William's family, like, the atmosphere and the stuff that went on. And everybody complains about their family a little bit. Like, even if you live in a nice situation, you're like, oh man, mom always asked me, like, how late I stayed up last night, or, man, I have to clean my room again. These are, like, basic complaints. But if you're living in, like, an abusive situation, or one where William...
obviously, like, to Mike, these would be first world problems. 100%. Like, if you looked at Mike and the situation Mike's in, and someone was like, my dad won't buy me a car. My mom bought me clothes.
And my dad put me in the nightmare chamber.
Yeah, he'd be like, my dad sprayed me in the eyes with nightmare gas. And I had nightmares for 3 weeks.
Fear experiments on me.
Or I went to see my dad, and rather than being happy, he, like, punched me or something. Like,
so
some
I think
crazy
this would
thing,
be a basic tension between Afton's kids and, Henry's kid. Just basic, like, mundane complaints.
Yeah, that contrast. Like, I think it makes sense that, like, in this circumstance, Drew could feel hard done by. Absolutely. Teenagers feel hard done by stuff like that all the time. But yeah, I think maybe Liam is like, I'm less forgiving. My family life is a lot harder than yours, and it's hard to be sympathetic to your circumstances. Yeah. So, dude's got enough money to take mom on a trip to Tahiti for their anniversary, and he won't buy me a new truck. What's up with that? Drew had been repeating this grouse ad nauseum for weeks.
Obviously, he's trying to teach him to be self-sufficient. That's why he wants him to have a job. Obviously, that's like, and that's a pretty basic, like, complaint between, like, parents.
Yeah. And it's funny because also, like, we get the implication that the Vengeful Spirit potentially likes cars as well. I don't know why.
That's right.
Child as well likes cars, like that. Just a weird thing. Liam would have traded his parents for Drew's any day. Drew's parents were attentive. Even though they both worked full-time, their main focus was on Drew and his sister, Carly. So Drew has a sister, so there's two kids.
Carly? What name does that sound like?
Carly, Charlie,
No.
Carly.
No.
Yeah.
Carly, Scott
Carly,
Cawthon would never.
Drew and
Scott wouldn't do this to me.
Drew and Carly were loved.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, again, that's never in question. Like, I mean, Henry does get a bit weird about forgetting about Sammy, but there's never really any question that at one point he loved them
what we see in the
both.
novels, he seems to be like portrayed as a positive relationship, especially in contrast to Williams.
Yeah, loved. Liam's parents were too caught up in their own problems to care much about him. He supposed they loved him, but he wasn't entirely sure about it. They mostly ignored him. He'd been pretty much on his own for a long time, even though they all slept under the same roof. So again,
that Crying Child's been kind of left in the nightmare chamber for a while too.
Yeah. Liam was sick of the whole new truck / Tahiti thing. Liam's main mode of transport was still his bicycle. Only on rare occasions was he able to borrow his mother's old beater, and that was when he really needed a car. Drew, on the other hand, had his own car. Drew's parents had given him a looks like 10-year-old SUV a year before on his 16th birthday.
Looks like new.
Yeah, looks like new, I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's showing his parents are very reasonable.
It was a nice vehicle.
They're
It just wasn't the brand new 3/4-ton double cab long bed that Drew wanted. Yeah, so Drew is just like a teenager who's like, we're rich, I should have better stuff, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
But again, it's that thing, because you have to constantly double check yourself as well, though, because we are seeing stuff through Liam's eyes, so you always have to go, is there a potential like thing that Liam's not seeing?
Yeah. You know, besides the metaphors, I think Scott's built up a pretty like believable characters and
again, looking at these characters through the lens of the other characters we have gives us a much keener view. You know, when you think Mike versus like say Sammy and Charlie, like would Mike have had a worse life than them? I'd say yes, probably. You know, like.
I still can't believe Carly.
Carly, Emily.
Scott doesn't even try with these.
I know. Yeah, he's just like whatever. But again, it doesn't matter because no one notices. Everybody's just like this. Fine. This has nothing to do with the canon. Whenever Drew brought up the truck lately, Liam wanted to use his dad's old line: "Quit your complaining, and I'll give you something to complain about." Mm-hmm. There you go. Like that's not an innocent statement. Like that's a "I will hit you." That's definitely a "I will hit you" statement. That's a "You better stop complaining, or I will hit you." Line. Yeah. Those words had been often accompanied by a blow. Yeah, there you go. Straight up. Yeah. Not even ambiguous. Liam's dad, a passive-aggressive wuss in public. So again, just to go back to what we've heard about, like, again, this... So it's possible, so just to reiterate, you can have two characters that represent one character in a story.
Yep.
That's totally common. It's totally normal in fiction. Like, when you're talking parallels... So, like, because we are talking about Michael, this is like Michael's William, you know, like, or so, Gregory. Yeah, or Gregory's William, depending on who you interpret it as. I just find it easier to imagine Mike's life because we know kind of a good chunk of Mike's life. But I think, yeah, Gregory would have had a horrible life as well. But yeah, so a passive-aggressive wuss. We know Dave is described as like a weasel. Like a weaselly, slinking guy. And we all, I mean, again, he only really fights kids. Or people he has the jump
vulnerable
on. You know,
people.
like vulnerable people who are off guard. He's not someone who would take you on in like a fist fight or whatever. Yeah. Passive aggressive wuss in public took out his frustrations on his wife and son. Mm-hmm. Not that anyone knew that, not even Drew. Liam had never told the truth about his occasional black eye or swollen jaw. So immediately that's an abused kid.
Scott's really, really like serious about and like just blatant about it that this is the situation with Liam's family. He is living. That's why he sees the Drew's complaints about, you know, like
he finds it hard to relate to the idea of like my parents won't buy me a second car when he can't even get his parents. He's not even sure his parents love him. You know,
there's neglect.
He's like, I suppose they love me, but they hit me, and I don't want to be around them. You know, like. Yeah. So yeah, he's in a horrible situation.
Well, no, not his, the wife doesn't remember. The wife is also a victim.
No, but again, like, but he said he supposed they loved him.
Yeah.
Because again, like, they're caught up in their own problems. Presumably, the wife's problems are her husband. It literally says that, like, took out his frustrations on his wife and son. There's an implication of domestic abuse there as well. You know, it's not a great situation at all. It's hard for her to take care of him when she's trying to take care of herself. She'll be in survival mode herself.
And in spite of this, Liam, you can see how he's...
wants to see the best in people, even though
kind
He's-
of a passive, hardworking,
Yeah.
like wants to see the positive side of things kind of character.
And you can see why he would be drawn to someone like Mr. Button, who seems like a really nice, gentle, loving person.
Mhm.
You know, he's a victim. He's vulnerable in that way, where he's not loved, he's not given love. So for sometimes people in abusive situations find themselves being abused by other people because they are readily seek out that love from other people. All it takes is maybe one nice comment, and they're like, "This person is the best person I've ever met."
Especially from someone that's like
contrast-
in a kind of fatherly,
Yeah,
role.
a
So
role
when
of
Mr. Burton
authority.
says, "Hey, just stay late for a while,"
Yeah,
for Liam, that if his home life's difficult,
Yeah.
that may be like an even.
and it's
like,
also a feeling of being
attractive or-
wanted. You know, like he's like, "Stay here. I need you guys." You know, and his parents don't need him. You know, that's the way he
Yeah.
feels. So
Or
there's a lot
Drew
of,
is like, "I'm
Drew's like-
busy. I have stuff to do."
yeah, Drew's like, "Go away. I'm trying to write stuff, and I've got a lot of complaining at my parents to get done so that I can get a car."
Yeah.
But yeah, it was after 2 a.m. when Liam and Drew stepped out into the alley behind the pizzeria. Liam inhaled the cool night air, wrinkling his nose when the smell of rotten produce wafted over for the nearby
Here's
dumpster.
the back. Here's the back of the restaurant with the dumpsters. That's
Yeah.
where we see
Charlie.
killed.
Heading towards his bike, which was chained to a post a few feet from the door, Liam glanced up at the stars.
Oh no.
Yeah. The black sky was full of them. For some reason, the stars always made Liam feel a little bit better about everything in his life. They reminded him that all his problems were mere specks in the grand scheme of things.
Stars and stargazing and are themes that Catharsis has put in his fanfic that he wrote.
Yeah.
But it's because we feel like it's an important theme for Freddy's. When you're
Yeah.
back behind the curtain, there's stars back there. Like when the curtains are closed, all you can see is like stars on the back of the
little
curtain.
hanging stars, you can even see them on our backdrop. Look, they're there.
Yeah.
So these
Well-
hanging stars are like prevalent alongside the like daisy chains of kids.
The rock stars. Henry William used
yeah.
them all the time, and then also like in Utah.
They also show the difficulty level of the things.
That's right. They're tied to endings.
Yeah.
So Scott's used them thematically in that sense. If you look at Utah as well, like Utah's a great place for
Yeah.
stargazing, because it has big parks and big open areas.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Yep. The town was quiet. The only immediate sound was the faint buzz of the old lighted Just a Pizza sign above the restaurant's back door. In the distance, a cat howled. Sometimes on late nights like this, Liam felt like the little town existed in its own reality, separate from the rest of the
another
world.
reality. What? Do it
Everything
again.
felt so insulated here. Yeah, and there's a lot of like lines like that in these stories where it's like, this is like another world, it's like another
Well,
universe, it's like another
In this story,
reality.
it's a little bit more ominous.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, I think it goes on.
Yeah.
This is a very important paragraph.
Liam and his family had moved here when he was a toddler, so he didn't remember anywhere else. He watched TV though. He knew what normal towns looked like. This one never felt normal to him. The place kind of reminded Liam of a collection of movie sets.
Mm-hmm.
Everything seemed strangely fake.
Yeah.
One neighbourhood was filled with 19th century homes, one was all mid-century modern, one was a gridwork of manufactured homes. The factory with its red brick exterior looked straight out of the 1800s, but the factory's offices,
He's like, AI made this
all
stupid
flashy
building,
steel
or
and glass,
this
were
stupid
almost
neighborhood.
futuristic. The two schools in the town, elementary and middle school/high school, reminded Liam of children's blocks. They were formed from prefab compartments linked together. All the businesses in the small
Scott and
downtown,
his
I know
describing
he
buildings.
loves
Sorry, he went off on a tangent here.
buildings. He loves buildings. He's like, no. He's like, stop. We're going to talk about every building in town.
Yeah.
I'm like, thanks, Scott. Each shop was a different colour. All were two-storey with living quarters above, and all had flat roofs. The shops marched along Main Street in a disconcertingly straight line in front of the diagonal parking spaces that lined the sidewalk. Liam had seen pictures of other small towns, places he thought looked inviting. This town wasn't inviting. In spite of the community's attempts to spruce up the 3-block-long, 2-traffic-light business district with multicoloured modern art sculptures placed along the sidewalk, the area still looked weirdly inhospitable. Liam didn't like to think too much about it, but he never really felt settled here. He planned to leave as soon as he could.
Okay, so why I said this is important, this ties into huge things that are going on with the current lore, right? So what we think, the current lore, when we went into Help Wanted, they were like, this is a fake VR reality world that you're in, you're playing games in it, it just tells you straight up. Then we see the Pizzaplex being built inside the VR, and then security breach happens and people are like, okay, we're in the real world now. But there's so many stories of these Tales and Fright stories that are like, you think you're in the real world, but you're not. Security breach happened, ruin happened, and ruin was very like, is it still reality? There's weird stuff going on with the mask, AR, teleportation. And then we got to Help Wanted 2, which is in the depths of the Pizzaplex. VR again, the glam, you interact with the glam rocks. I think this whole time, everything has been in VR, and it's been a VR like video game world. I think that the theme of characters stuck in video games, stuck in loops, has been in all the new interactive novels as well. And so here again, so here's a character.
Again, like for me, I don't even know. Like for all we know, it could go even more meta than that. They could literally be stuck in these books like the Page Master or something.
I think Scott's careful
VR,
to separate
but
the interactive novels as games. Like he
Yeah.
has the game over.
yeah,
he
VIP
has-
and stuff. But it's like
you
yeah, he's
crashed the
framed
game.
it. Yeah,
he's
crashed the
he's
game.
like, they aren't inside books.
Yeah.
They aren't. Although the logbook is like that. So
Yeah,
maybe,
no, I
but
think you're right. I think there is. It's like you
the
crashed
interactive
the
novels,
game.
he's like, these are games.
Like you've collected these. How do you want to play the game?
That's right.
Yeah, he frames it as a game for sure.
But so for this in particular, I think this is a false world that has been set up for Liam's benefit. This whole story happens for Liam's benefit, I would say. It's a false construct that's meant with a purpose, and we'll see what that purpose is. But it's for Liam. It is a fake world for Liam, I think, or for Crying Child to separate him from a certain somebody.
Yeah. Instead of striding towards his SUV, which was parked next to Mr. Button's panel van. What's a panel van?
Isn't it the ones with like a wood panel on the side?
Like an old school van? Is that not like a pure 70s thing? Hold on. Let me see. Panel van. Oh, it's just a standard thing. It's just a normal.
Just enclosed cargo vehicle,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
a
one
panel.
in
It's just a fully enclosed
Help Wanted
body
2
and
update.
no rear windows.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the Help Wanted
the
2
kidnapping mixes vehicle.
Yeah,
van.
it's just like a transit van.
Mr. Burton has a kidnapping van.
Oh my god, he's got to get in the van,
No.
like candy van.
Sure.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Hold on, I want to actually So when we'll talk about like normal van, like here's what a panel van looks like. It's just literally this. It's just one of these vans.
No, he has
It's
a
just
kidnapping van.
it's like a free candy
His
van.
non-suspicious kidnapping van.
Yeah. So that's fine. He's got. I was expecting him to have an old-fashioned car because he likes old-fashioned stuff, but no, he's got a van.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Drew stood still and jangled his keys. You know, he said, there's no way we can pay for prom with what we get paid here. Liam was well aware. Liam's girlfriend, Shauna, wanted a special night for their senior prom. She expected him to spring for an expensive dinner out, and of course he had to rent a tux and get her a corsage.
I don't know who these girls...
And like break free of these gender expectations, dude. Get her to pay for half the bloody dinner.
I don't think these girls represent anyone in particular.
No.
I think they just represent like their
Money,
personalities.
they're like teenage problems or
Yeah,
whatever. On top of that, there was the travel expense. He at first thought he'd just have to come up with gas money for the long drive to the prom's after party. He'd planned to borrow his mom's car for that, but then Shauna decided she wanted to go to the party in style. Liam and Drew were supposed to split the cost of a limo for the night. Yeah, why would... And again, like, Drew can afford this. Why would he make his poor friend pay for this limo? I'm like, Drew, chill. But maybe Liam's proud about it. Maybe Liam wants to pay. I don't know. Liam had been trying to talk Shauna out of the limo, but so far she wasn't budging. He was going to have to dip into the savings he'd been working at amassing. He'd planned on using that savings to buy his own car. Prom was going to push that dream further away. And I think for him, a car is a way out of town.
Yeah, that's what he said.
He wants to leave, and I think that car is like the first step to his own freedom and getting away. We could always take on a second job, Liam said as he unlocked his bike. Drew snorted. I barely have time for this one. What with Rianne in the paper. Liam didn't comment. Drew was the editor-in-chief and main writer for the school's paper. He liked to call himself an investigative journalist. It's like Lawson and stuff. His latest series had been on chemical additives and the school lunches. And this is interesting. We have a whole story as animatronic apocalypse.
Yep.
Where there's like weird stuff going on at school. Like, there's weird stuff going on.
So the Vengeful Spirit, and this is all, again, so sorry this capstone, this delves into everything. The Vengeful Spirit, as far as we can tell, is a conspiracy theorist and someone who does investigations and does writing for newspapers and investigative writing. We think Tony in GGY is one of those characters. He's very serious about wanting to investigate what's happened to his dad. And as a result, investigates what's going on in the Pizzaplex and beats bad end. There's Gordon from Felix the Shark is a conspiracy theorist character. That's how he's described. He thinks his boss is a robot. He's a twin character, a male twin character.
Did you talk about Pickle?
We're getting to him.
Yeah. No, I just don't know if I zoned out.
Pickle is a male twin character. He thinks his teacher is a robot. He's also a conspiracy theorist.
Pickles thinks his teacher's a robot and wants to prove it by taking a chunk out of her, and his sister talks him down.
We think these are very there's a very specific character trait. I don't know. The Blackbird is about like Nightmare. He's a very vengeful character who gets revenge on his bully. That character's name is Sam. Basically, we think from all hallmarks and pinpoints, and this ties it all in very nicely with Drew and his investigative research and journalism and his conspiracy kind of mindset. It's Henry's son. That's the Vengeful Spirit. I know I don't know his name in the canon. It may have been changed from Sam. It may be Andrew. I don't know. I don't think it's Cassidy because I think Cassidy is another character. But if you believe that that's the Vengeful Spirit, maybe it's Cassidy. Whatever his name is. It's Henry's son. It's the puppet's twin. It's this guy, and here's another consistent characterization of him that ties it into Andrew, the Vengeful Spirit. So,
yeah. So
I love this character form too because he's like his identity is such a conspiracy theory to begin with, and it's great that he was kind of a little investigative detective character that wants to write about like all of William's nonsense.
He admittedly spent a lot of time on the paper, but he didn't have to. And as for Rianne, Drew's girlfriend, he didn't spend that much time with her. Drew treated her as more of a decoration for his arm than a real girlfriend.
Not invested in girls, Drew?
Drew jingled his keys louder and kicked a pebble which pinged off the dumpster's green metal. It's the principle of the thing, he said. That old troll makes plenty of money. He could pay us more. He's just like my dad. Tight. Thinks just because he's older he should get all the money. Treats us young guys like servants. It's not right. Maybe not, Liam said, but it's normal. Everyone has to start someplace, generally the bottom. The only way to make sure we're the ones with the money someday is to work hard. Drew blew a raspberry. Now you sound like my dad. That's bull. Why should you have to work hard for money when there's plenty to go around?
Tell him, Drew.
Yeah, Drew.
He's like the proletariat. Yeah. He's like, one day the workers will rise.
Yeah.
Drew's amazing.
Liam straightened his bike and prepared to get on it. He's like,
they're just not paying us for like no reason. And Drew's like, Liam's like, it's a moral lesson because you have to be paid less. Drew's like, no, you don't.
Like, I hate moral lessons.
He's like, that's a lie. Yeah. He's like, that's a lie made up by like the man.
Yeah. He'd already decided he'd take on some extra jobs, mowing lawns, washing cars, cleaning windows to pay for all the prom expenses. He'd asked Mr. Button for more hours, but the old guy had regretfully said it wouldn't be fair to the other employees to give Liam a larger share of the hours. Mr. Button had 8 other employees. 2 of them were cooks. The other 6 were like Liam and Drew.
I think there's 8 graves around the glitch trap grave.
Their duties ranged from serving tables to delivering pizzas to washing dishes to general cleaning. Liam understood that Mr. Button's reasoning. There were only so many hours to go around. The pizzeria was usually busy, but it was small and it could generate only so much revenue. Drew snapped his fingers. Liam blinked and frowned at him. I've got it, Drew said. I'm going to write an expose on low-paying jobs. He's like, I'm going to get this guy done for child labour.
Yeah.
No, wait, I'll write one on Mr. Button. Drew narrowed his eyes and looked over towards the pizzeria. I've never trusted the man. That whole jolly old elf thing he has going on has to be some kind of front. No one's that happy all the time. And this is interesting, the jolly old elf.
Santa.
And William is specifically described as an affable Santa Claus.
A financially shrewd Santa Claus.
Yeah, affable and fat and people like him and whatever. Yeah.
So there's another big thing about this story, which is that Drew's grudge doesn't seem to be based in anything here. Like, he's he has a few complaints, but, not anything big. He just doesn't trust Mr. Burton for, like, indescribable reasons. He's like, he's too happy and I just don't like it. But that's the problem, right? The Vengeful Spirit, we see, William says the kids forget. They don't remember. And that's why he can do anything that he wants to them and tells them to, can tell them to do whatever he wants, because they don't remember that he killed them. And so the Vengeful Spirit must irrationally just be like, no, I just don't like the look of that guy.
And we totally see that's viable because Andrew feels that way about William.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, why are you mad at William? He's like, I don't know, I just want to explode him.
He's like, I don't remember, but I feel like maybe he should be dead.
Yeah.
And because William took that away from them, their ability to, like, remember and have revenge and everything. But the Vengeful Spirit, like, his vengeance is too strong.
he's steeped in vengeance to the point where he doesn't need memories. He's like, I just don't like that guy.
They're like, and from the other kids' perspectives, it must look totally irrational. They must be like,
yeah, they're like, why is this kid so mad?
They're like, why are you so mad at this really nice guy or whatever? And he's
I'm like relates on a visceral level.
He's like, he's just like, I can just feel it.
Yeah, when it comes to other people, I'm like, sometimes I just get a vibe and I'm like, don't know about that. But yeah, and then other people are like, what's wrong with you? And then I'm like, a year later, I'm like, yeah, that's what I thought. Let's see. So
I think it's important to pay attention to your subconscious and your instincts.
Again, like sometimes you'll be talking to someone who, to all intents and purposes, feels like a warm, friendly, reasonable person, but something in you says no. I'm like, always listen to that no. If there's something in you that on a gut level is like, there's something strange here, listen to that.
There's a book called The Gift of Fear, which goes over this as well, like people's encounters with, even like really dangerous encounters with dangerous people. And a lot of those people do pretend to be friendly. They're like, hey, my arm's hurt in this cast. I really need some help getting this sofa into the back of my van. Could you help me? And,
Because people without empathy, without like qualms about things, like really, truly, like truly evil individuals, they see like that kind of like the human like intention. Like humans want to help each other. Humans want to deal with people friendly. If someone's friendly, you be friendly back. That's generally the response.
People don't want to push or cause problems or be a bother. If someone says, hey, actually, could you walk me up to my room? Could I help you walk you up to your room?
Yeah, like someone knocking your door and being like, hey, could I borrow like some stuff or whatever? A lot of people would have trouble saying no to that. You know what I mean? Like, because it seems like a reasonable enough request, but you need to listen to those gut instincts. And I think that's really important. And I feel like in this circumstance, maybe he just has that gut instinct left, and he's listening to it.
Yeah,
that's just basically what it seems to be.
In the overall story, this story is a little bit different.
This story's different, but I think in the overall, where he has no memories left, I think that is what the Vengeful Spirit like embodies. Yeah, and I think also like interestingly, that's a very just not to tangentially go off again, but in Japan, that's actually how ghosts operate. Like they're very like they're not sentient, thoughtful beings a lot of the time. In Japan, like all the memories and stuff kind of like go away from a ghost the way they perceive them, and it's the essence of an event. That's why like you'll have like the little kids that are really scary in Japanese myth or whatever. They're not kids anymore. They're not like women anymore. They're like the trauma of the event given a shape. You can't reason with them. They are just like almost like a poltergeist. They're like an energy. And it's more common in Eastern mythology than Western. We tend to see ghosts as more like, oh, it's my like Jacob Marley,
my dad,
or whatever, or it's my family or whatever, and you can almost communicate with them. A lot of Eastern stuff, you can't. They have ancestor like stuff where they can talk to their ancestors, respect their ancestors, but ghosts are a bit more complicated, I think. And yeah, so I think there's a bit of that kind of element in the way the ghosts are in FNAF. Yeah, so.
Jolly old elf.
Jolly old elf. No one's that happy all the time. Liam raised an eyebrow and studied his friend. Drew, Liam supposed, was a good-looking guy.
Hey.
At least that's what girls seem to think.
Sure.
He's like, no homo. Tall and lean, Drew wasn't exactly athletic, but his long legs and torso gave him the look of a long-distance runner.
Long legs is something we see Sam from Blackbird. There's a lot of awkward, gangly, long-limbed things, and I think it's because that's what Nightmare Own looks like.
Yeah, Nightmare Own, long leg. He long leg. Yeah, so Drew wasn't exactly athletic, but his long legs and torso gave him the look of a long-distance runner, or maybe a rock star.
Oh, and I guess I'll go really quickly. Andrew gives William nightmares in the stories that he shows up. That's why I connect him with the nightmare characters that torment. Nightmarion is the face of UCN, and I think it's one of William's tormentors. I think it's one face of the Vengeful Spirit. I know the Vengeful Spirit whispers behind the mediocre melodies as well. I think the Vengeful Spirit's hiding its identity ultimately, but the connection between nightmares and giving William nightmares and UCN, that's why I think Nightmarion's a definite connection.
Yeah, at least when he wasn't dressed in Just a Pizza's employee uniform of a crisp white shirt, black pants, and burgundy cotton apron.
Burgundy here
He's like makes them wear burgundy.
Burgundy's like a purplish red. I think it's like this is kind of like a not quite purple, but it's knockoff purple, which is this whole story, right? Like this is knockoff William, knockoff
Burgundy man.
Andrew, knockoff CC.
Yeah, so there's burgundy just for reference. This is the
so
general
so
consensus
you can
on burgundy.
See.
It's pretty purple. It's purple without saying purple, isn't it?
It's knockoff purple.
It's like purple meets red, but it's still kind of purple.
Which is what what we're doing with the story. This isn't literally William.
But again, like we're seeing like elements. Like burgundy's a very specific color to like really like.
This is such a useful and in-depth story. I'm so glad.
But again, like trying to explain it to people without doing this kind of like in-depth read is nearly impossible.
I think some people get the Drew and Andrew thing at least.
Yeah, maybe. With longish black hair, brooding brown eyes, and features Shauna had once described as sultry.
Henry has dark hair, dark eyes.
Henry's described as
Jen has dark hair, dark eyes. Charlie has dark hair, dark eyes.
Henry's described as like almost more like handsome than his own good. Weirdly, I don't know. Like
Henry's has like movie star looks.
Yeah,
like, he's a little rugged.
Yeah, and he's just weird, even though he looks fancy.
It's funny that he's
sultry
here.
Liam had decided not to be jealous about that.
Okay,
is he jealous of the girlfriend or jealous of the sultry look?
It's in the air.
Drew reminded Liam of one of those hippie-ish looking guys who recited poems on open mic nights. He's a beatnik.
I love this like super angsty, sultry, brooding description of the Vengeful Spirit.
I really like your art you did of him.
I mean, you can pull it up.
Let's see.
She drew on that.
Yeah, she drew him. Let's see if I can find him. Please say you named it Drew. I hope you did. No, that would be too sensible. I have to find it in my folder.
Every time with this story as well, I keep thinking, because I've watched like Epic the Musical, and there's this part with Poseidon's like, Monster!
Monster, you're like, I need to read Monster.
Yeah.
Let me see. I've got a lot of stuff.
Try Monster.
No.
Why?
That would be too sensible. Is that what you would name it?
Yeah.
He's in here somewhere. See, I knew you wouldn't name it something sensible like that. It'll be called some random thing. I'm trying to find it because it's sorted by date, I think. Let me check. I do want to show it because it is really good. It's a really good summation.
It's not colored,
descriptions. No, it's just black and white.
I was gonna do, but I haven't done Greg's design yet. I wish I had Mr.
Button saved because your Mr. Button was really, really cute.
I had them together on the same piece of.
Maybe it is then. I don't know. He was in here because I saw him. There he is. There we go. Yeah, it's a Drew. And yeah, I just really like that. That's a very accurate depiction of him, I think.
I gave him a Mr. Coffee shirt.
Yeah, coffee.
Coffee shirt, not Mr. Coffee.
Yeah, Mr. Coffee would be if like he was a Merry Melody.
And there he's. I did my best with Mr. Burroughs.
Yeah, I just remember you did an extra like Mr. Button one that was really cute.
Mr.
As well.
Burton. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's really good. I like it. It's cute.
Yep, there he is.
Let's see. So Drew couldn't have looked more different from Liam. Liam had gotten his looks from his mom and her mostly Irish family. He did mostly Irish.
Liam has a bit reddish brown hair, well, kind of, I think, in comparison to Henry's.
His auburn hair was colored.
Yeah, auburn. We see William's hair described as auburn quite a few times, actually.
And for reference, auburn.
Yeah, it's kind of a brownish red. I think that's what I think.
Yeah, auburn, like weirdly, like my family have a lot of auburn hair. It's kind of like brown with ginger. I think I have auburn hair.
Yeah.
I have read through it. I think because my family carries the ginger gene really heavily. Like my family's like the Weasleys.
Scottish.
Yeah. Yeah. So Yeah, so he's auburn. He's got curly auburn hair.
Like,
Curly hair's the worst.
I'm pretty sure in Lolly's game, Selena has auburn hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His auburn hair was curly, and his facial features were more on the cute and cuddly side than the sultry side. His fair skin was freckled. Liam had spent most of his high school years waiting for a growth spurt that thus far hadn't come. He got into 5 feet 8 inches, but that was where he seemed to be sticking. He made the most of his height, though. Oh my god, Mike's small as well, isn't he, in the movie?
Mike's small. Gregory, we see as well, like, it has some problems with, like, perpetually being a child and not growing up. Gregory's probably, like, 50, so.
Yeah. He was on the school's wrestling team, and his lean, muscled physique reflected that.
Yeah.
He might not have been big, but he was powerful. Now, if he could only get more facial hair, that might help him look more like the adult he was trying to grow into.
Yeah.
And once again, you have to bear in mind, this is Liam's description of himself, and he's self-conscious, and he thinks Drew is hot and whatever. Drew might have a different perspective on himself, and vice versa.
It's funny, we usually, a lot of times we see the Sammy character described as not attractive. Like, Charlie has a nice face, Charlie's attractive.
They're always like, oh, Pickle was like really ugly and has a monobrow, and his dad's really like attractive and his mom's really attractive, but somehow their features combined just don't work, and he's got wonky teeth and whatever.
So it's funny that Liam's being like really generous here.
Yeah, he's like, wow, he's so moody.
Yeah.
When did you decide happy was a bad thing to be? Liam asked Drew. Drew laughed without a trace of humour. It's not bad, it's just not real. Happy is an illusion.
Oh, like, see?
Or at least it will be until we get out from under the thumb of the man.
100% right, Drew. 100% right. Dead on.
He's like, this isn't a real happiest day.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not really happy, we're being held here.
See, so that's my impression as well. The happiest day was like a trick that William did in order to get control of the children's souls. We see that like Jake has a fake birthday party that Eleanor sends him to try to get him under control. Cake and birthday parties and birthday hats. That's all William's murder spree stuff. So that's why I think in the fake VR worlds, Drew is just right on the money here, where things aren't real. He can't trust the happiness, and he doesn't. I don't think Andrew participates in the happiest day. I don't think that he was one of the kids involved in that. I think because he steered clear.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's right. No. We support our boy.
Yeah. And I think maybe the fact he wasn't involved in the happiest day is why he has his memories. There seems to be some implication that it has to be almost willingly given. The kids have to trust William at the time. I think maybe he killed the Vengeful Spirit when he didn't trust him. And he remembers that. I think that's something.
The novel's a little bit more mixed up. You have a very nice Golden Freddy who's very sweet and cooperative, and he also just wants to get rid of William once he finds out what happens. He doesn't want to torture him over and over or anything.
Yeah.
Movies, we're seeing a darker, more vengeful Golden Freddy, and I think there's I think at least 4 parts of Golden Freddy, but 2 of those parts I think is Crying Child, which is right here. That's Liam. That's William Jr. That's and the other part is Sam or Andrew or Henry's son, and they have different viewpoints on the whole situation, obviously.
Yep. Let's see. So, yeah, he's like under the thumb of the man. Liam laughed out loud. The man? Did we time travel to the 60s and I missed it?
Yes.
Yes, probably. It's probably the 70s or 80s or something. He shook his head and got on his bike. I need to go home and get some sleep. I promised Mrs. Gomez I'd weed her vegetable patch in the morning. He looked at his old cracked watch. I mean, today, it'll be light in just a few hours. Drew punched Liam lightly in the bicep. Better you than me. I'm going to go sleep until Mom drags me out of bed for Sunday brunch.
So,
I guess he just doesn't want to go home.
He kept them for a very long time.
Yeah, after 2 a.m. it says that he let them out.
Okay, yeah.
It was late Sunday evening before Drew finally got to settle down in front of his computer to write his story. Drew settled on the rumpled grey sheets knotted up on his queen-size bed. So is this is from Drew's perspective now?
Yep.
We're finally able to see his perspective.
Drew's head.
Yeah. Drew settled in the rumpled grey sheets knotted up on his queen-size bed, popped open a can of soda, put in his earphones and cranked up some grunge rock.
Hell yeah. Now, I love that Drew loves grunge rock and is just this like
so much angst. Also, again, it's in contrast, he's like angst, like artificial angst, whereas Liam is suffering real angst, like...
Henry and William as well, like, obviously they had an interest in bands. They made their own robot band, even if it's like a children's band, but we see classic references 100%. To rock.
And even if we look at like the Chuck E. Cheese and the Showbiz Pizza connection, They did like the Beatles. They did like all sorts of really
And
well-known songs.
Before they
Yeah.
also were in the suits, so it was William doing guitar and Henry singing, presumably.
Yeah.
So both their dads come from like a kind of like a band background. I think it'd be really fun if the kids, if everything like didn't go wrong, the kids did a band.
Oh, that would have been really cute. Like
Yeah.
the little kids doing a band.
Yeah.
I wonder what Elizabeth probably would have liked to be like a singer. But she would have been like, I'm not doing a silly singing thing. She seemed like she was a bit more
She
like
did.
serious.
Circus Baby was a main singer.
Yeah,
That's
but I
true.
mean, like, she would have wanted to be, the solo singer, like, just her, able to do her thing. Yeah, she was very, like, independent, and I guess, maybe she would have kept that.
Sammy can do drums.
Hey,
Mike can do guitar.
No, I don't. Would Sammy tolerate drums?
Yeah.
Drummers get dissed so hard in rock bands, though. Everybody's like, oh, it's the drummer. He's an idiot.
What is I think
as lead guitarist is like, you want to be the lead guitarist or the singer.
Monty plays
bass players get dissed, and the drummers get dissed. It's just a shame.
Monty plays bass, right?
I think so. Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, he's listening to grunge rock. He left his parents and his sister all cozied up on the sofa in the family room. They were going to watch some feel-good rom-com.
Not for Drew.
No, Drew's like, I don't need to watch this stuff. Carly had suggested he invite Rianne over to join them. Carly, who had just turned 13, looked up to Rianne in an embarrassingly fawning way.
Now, I'm just going to say as well, I'm not totally sure. I would say, and this isn't my ship, okay? Keep this in mind. This is just interpreting these characters best we can. It feels like that there's some Mike and Charlie ships, and that there are some Sam and Elizabeth ships. That Scott
again,
has.
like, it's really not.
So I
know you're just like, ugh.
I don't know if Rianne is supposed to be like it's Elizabeth type character. I don't know.
Who knows?
Or they also
that's the problem with these metaphors and stuff, because like Scott really does just crisscross them all over the place.
Especially with the characters we don't linger on for too long.
Yeah, especially when it's like a background character or whatever.
If
like,
we spend the whole book with them, we have a lot of clues. But
like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like, we have very little sentiment between any of these characters. Like, even though Liam's like, oh, he doesn't talk to his girlfriend very much, he barely thinks about his girlfriend as well, honestly. He's just like, oh, I have to pay money for this. Yeah. So, Drew explained he had to work he had work to do, and he was rewarded by his dad's approving grin. He's like, I don't want to They're like, why don't you invite your girlfriend over? He's like, I'm busy, and his dad's like, you go, son, you be busy rather than like inviting your girlfriend over.
And he's like, that sounds about right. That's fine. Keep up the family tradition, son.
Yeah, he's like, neglect that girlfriend. I'm like, His mom had made some comment about wondering how he could work in the pigsty of his room. He'd given her a hug, and her complaint had melted away.
He's like, a little bit manipulative
here.
Yeah,
he's like, shh, don't complain about the messy room. Only hugs now. Drew had to admit his room was starting to smell a little rank. The odour of sweaty, dirty clothes and spoiling food. He kept forgetting to throw away takeout containers and junk food packaging. Well, all that compatible.
Now, what we see about bad smells and trash and all that stuff is very agony oriented, and all this is very like, which we think probably the Vengeful Spirit is steeped in agony. So,
yeah, but whatever. He was a writer, not a cleaner. He is a cleaner. He works in a pizzeria where he's supposed to clean stuff, but doesn't.
Well, he doesn't do that either. Remember?
I know he doesn't.
So...
I know, he's like, could you do your job and like clean the plates? He's like, nah.
He's like tippity type, right?
I'm an
instead.
Artist.
Yeah, that's
artist, not a writer.
That's
artist,
exactly.
Not a cleaner. I'm like, dude.
He keeps up that. He's not inconsistent.
No.
He does that in his job too.
If he wanted to be the kind of award-winning investigative journalist he intended to be, he'd have to learn to write in any setting. He's like, I'm gonna have
to write his depression
in a hovel. Yeah. But whatever. Yeah. Let's see. His cluttered, smelly bedroom was probably the least of the squalor he'd be writing in over the coming years when he went after and found the story that would make him a best-selling writer. He's like, I'm just numbing my system to the smell of old socks. I'm like, okay, dude.
And this again, it gets painted Drew in a bad light. He's kind of a glory hound. What he really wants is like the fame or whatever. And he's not very conscientious about his environment or his family.
He planned to go from the school paper to a national paper. And from there, he was going to become a serious book author. He was going to be an influencer. People were going to hang on his every word.
Yeah. So here he wants to be
Influencer.
in charge. He wants to tell people what to do. Which, yeah, that's the conflict, right, between the Vengeful Spirit, and there is some leadership conflict between the Vengeful Spirit and William, right?
Yeah.
Over what course of action to take.
Drew shoved a pillow behind his back and flexed his fingers. Ever since he and Liam had left the pizzeria early that morning, he'd been turning over ideas about how to write the expose on Mr. Button. He'd gone to sleep chewing on several story hooks, and when he got up, he was still mulling over various angles. As if his article series was divinely ordained, Drew got further inspiration from the drive to his parents' country club, where the family had mandatory Sunday brunch every week. So he's from an extremely rich family, but it seems like more of a burden on him than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
The drive always passed a farm on the outskirts of town. Mm-hmm. It belonged to a strange old man who had a billboard at the edge of his property. The croc expressed his frequently bizarre views on the billboard, many of which were on the theme of the downfall of mankind. Today's message had read, "Demons live among us. They're masters of deception."
Now, see, this is pretty interesting as well. Old man consequence, right?
Yeah. Like there's someone sending messages into this like town of there is something happening.
We know Drew's family lives on a farm too, so it kind of ties, and I would say ties together. Yeah. Henry and Old Man Consequences here, and yeah, he's talking about like leave the demon to his demons, you know.
Yeah, and again, like it's just a message, you know, like. And it's like you can say, oh, so again, you have to remember this is a story, right? Stories are constructed. So in the real world, you might have someone with a billboard and they might have a random thing. It doesn't mean anything. So so your brain automatically wants to be like, this is just a crazy guy. An author has taken. He could have given that guy anything on his billboard. They could have put anything on it, but they've chosen this as a thematic through line for this story. Again, I'm just like this is about deception. It's about demons, which we know William's associated with demons. Again, it's worth bearing that in mind because authors make decisions. They're human beings. So the decision that was made.
I think it goes on to explain that demons line here. Yeah. So here we go.
So the billboard got Drew's creative juices flowing. What better disguise for a demon than a seemingly benign, perpetually smiling old guy who sells pizzas? Drew had to admit he didn't think Mr. Button was a literal demon. Not a literal demon. He's a metaphorical demon. There's a metaphor in here. There's a parallel. Oh my god. Not the kind with horns, anyway. But demons must have minions who do their dirty work. Drew reasoned as he typed. Yeah, again, minions. So like minions like Liam.
William has people that work for him. Yeah.
Yep. What humans called psychopaths, for example, were one form of a demon or a demon's helper. So literally,
Scott being as subtle as he can.
Yeah, he's as subtle as a brick. And again, we know that Scott considers William to be a psychopath because literally for the movie, on his like inspiration board that he gave them for like clothes and everything, like it was all psychopaths and stuff, like well-known psychopaths and serial killers.
Now Scott, I think,
and there are several characters. Scott isn't. Again, it's that Scott isn't. He's not. He treats it with respect as well. He's not like every psychopath is evil.
No,
we literally have a really sensitive depiction of like a kid with diminished empathy. Because again, like diminished empathy comes in many forms. You know, like people with autism struggle with empathy, and sometimes, you know what I mean. Like there can be limitations on that. Mm-hmm. Does that mean they're bad? No. It's just a lack of understanding. Anybody can live a good life regardless of how their brain is configured. It's just, he's like, in this case, he's talking about like psychopaths, like serial killers, rather than psychopaths, like people who just don't have diminished empathy with other people.
But also, the important thing about this is, too, I think with the storyline Scott gave us, which is one where children are dead, you may, from research, maybe questionable research, you can harvest a way to bring children back to life, cure cancer, right wrongs and stuff using mad science. Scott had a way to paint a very sympathetic character who maybe had to make some bad choices or decisions to like save his family or something like that. But Scott does not do this here. He says, William killed some kids, and the science like motivations are there. Like probably maybe without that he wouldn't have like gone that far, but the reason he took the path he took was because he's a bad guy. Yeah. I think Scott doesn't mince words too much here with I think Scott, William has like a complicated portrayal, but Scott doesn't go too far as like he's just a really nice guy that maybe made some bad decisions along the way. He's pretty condemning of he doesn't go that far with, yeah, this can probably be excused. He's like, it can't be excused. He did these murders and shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. A form of demon or a demon's helper. What if Mr. Button was a psychopath? Mr. Button's kind public persona, in contrast to the miserly way he handled his employees, was certainly suspect, if not outright demonic.
Obviously Drew's way taking this out of the, way out
that
of
was
left field
Drew's
here.
hook. Grinning, he began to type as fast as his fingers would go.
But is he wrong about capitalism?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but again, I think in this case, he's got that gut instinct, and he's like, something must mean this, and he's like, picks a really small thing to try and pull at the threads that he feels.
Scott's got it complicated. I think, kind of like that retail environment is one of the big enemies in FNAF.
Yeah.
Like, why are these workers in these, like, horrible conditions all the time?
I still, the most recent, like, Digital Circus, where they're in, like, they went from, like, almost like a haunted house hell situation to retail, and people like retail's boss.
Scott worked in retail jobs a long time. And
was it not the worst place? Was it not like General Dollar or something?
Yeah.
Like, oh god.
Dollar General.
Dollar General. Yeah, we don't have it here. Here it'd be Poundland.
But they did a whole bunch of egregious, like, workers' rights stuff. Scott talked about, like, having, like, managers or shift leaders that were, a lot younger than him. Just kind of a humiliating and low paying and awful, just the wage slave life.
Yeah, and he did a lot of things.
I've worked in retail.
I think he did like long distance driving as well, like trucking stuff. I think he did some trucking, and that would have taken him away from his family as well. Like, that's not a great place to be either.
But it's definitely one of the major villains.
A lot of the pictures in FNAF 4 on the walls are ones that he took. The ones in a lot of the pictures in FNAF 4 on the walls are ones that he took while he did trucking, was what he said. But yeah, I have to find my place every 5 minutes because we keep deviating.
That was Drew's hook.
Grinning, he began to type as fast as his fingers would go. In less than an hour, Drew was reading over what he thought was his best article ever. Some of the lines were just plain brilliant, like this one. In an age that places a spotlight on hypocrisy, vilifying big pharma that kills cuddly animals in pursuit of the almighty dollar, and boycotting goods manufactured in overseas sweatshops, how is it we are willing to accept this same kind of duplicity in our own town? I'm like,
Drew's against big pharma.
Druigi.
Yeah.
Drew found parallels between demonic subterfuge and the inconsistency in the service industry's aims. How can a business that claims to be serving the community undermine that very community with unfairly low wages?
That's right, Drew
wrote. Yeah, 100%. He went on to discuss the egregious unfairness of requiring employees to buy their own work clothes. That's terrible as well. I don't think people should have to buy their own work clothes. Like, companies can afford work clothes. They can just buy them in bulk and give them out. Like, making people buy them? No, that's not right. I agree. Drew's right.
But this is a complicated story, in this terms of the story, like, Drew's supposed to be kind of unreasonable here.
Yeah. Even trying to write an unreasonable character, I'm like, he is being reasonable about the clothes
but
thing.
it's a dual-sided story, right?
Yeah. Mr. Button requires his employees to wear white button front shirts, cotton only. White is the colour of cleanliness, he tells us. It doesn't matter that we work around pizzas and keeping grease and tomato sauce off our clothes is almost impossible. We're expected to buy the clothes and keep them clean. The only thing Mr. Button provides is the Just a Pizza burgundy aprons. He's passing off his expenses to his low-paid employees. Is that the act of a nice man?
So yeah, again, probably, probably we're saying, there's standard, like, buying white shirt and black pants isn't really, a lot of jobs do have that kind of requirement.
They shouldn't. Yeah. I don't care.
You're like, Drew's 100% right.
Yeah.
But this is, it's giving him kind of a gripe that you can see, like...
Yeah, they're like, oh, maybe this is unreasonable. But I'm like, it's not unreasonable. I'm get them. Get them, Drew. We shouldn't have to buy anything. It should be, here's your clothes. Unless it's like, I don't agree with it. Even like stupid office things. I'm like, don't tell me what to wear. Yeah, I'm here to work. Pay me for that. Pay me to wear clothes.
I know there's a lot of stuff that's very like,
and yeah, like again, like he's like, oh, we work around pizzas white, so that's not one white shirt. That's a white shirt until you get too much pizza sauce on it and you can't get it off because it's really hard to remove stains like that, and then you have to buy another shirt. That's a shirt subscription plan, is what that is. I'm like, Drew, you're right. I agree with you, bro. Let's see. The gist of Drew's point was that nice old guys who acted like they had everyone's best interests at heart couldn't at the same time pay their employees pathetically low wages and treat their employees unfairly.
And just to say as well, so a lot of this is short, but so one interpretation of this story reading it might be that, this is Henry, Mr. Burton's Henry, like a nice old guy trying his best, and Drew, I don't know who Drew would maybe be William, unfairly railing against him, or there's different like things, but so through our lens, there's a whole lot of things that I think 100% it's Mr. Burton, it's Andrew, it's Vengeful Spirit, but you can see kind of where there might be kind of a toss up between, is Mr. Burton supposed to be, if like there's a lot of like the specific things like the plants and the antiques and all the weird deep cut stuff. There's some ambiguity about Mr. Burton's role in all this.
Yeah. Before Drew latched onto the whole demonic angle, he planned on doing some research to see what kind of dirt he could dig up on Mr. Button. Once he got his big idea, though, he didn't bother with research. Who cared? If Mr. Button was a fake, his past would be fake too. Drew might as well take creative license and provide Mr. Button with a past that fit his unfair practices.
Here's again the problem with the Vengeful Spirit, who, like he's gotta make some big decisions with no memories at his disposal.
Yeah, and again though, like it's complicated. Like from what we can glean, William potentially had a very bad childhood.
Yeah.
Do you excuse him on that basis? No, but does it factor in? Like, if you just say he's just evil and that's it, it's easier to do mean things to him or whatever. And Drew kind of is like, he's just bad, I'm not going to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's complicated as well.
Mm-hmm. Drew ended his article.
No, but I'll get there.
Okay.
Don't jump the gun. I'll get there. Drew ended his article with a call to action. If you're a consumer with integrity, if you like to make wise... See, I'm not even reading it, I'm just mad. If you're a consumer with integrity, if you like to make wise and conscientious financial choices, not decisions, you can do only one thing about two-faced men like Mr. Button. Let Mr. Button know you won't stand for his treatment of his poor beleaguered employees. If Mr. Button refuses to raise his wages, he deserves nothing less than to relinquish his claim to your business. No good pay for Just a Pizza's employees.
We're cancelling Mr. Burton.
No business for Just a Pizza's owner. They're going to deplatform that pizzeria. It should be that simple.
Poor old pizzeria owner.
I encourage you all to take the action you have the power to take. Mr. Button doesn't deserve your support if he doesn't support his employees. On Wednesday afternoon, the latest school paper came out.
I love the idea of like Henry's son like writing up little like cancel and call out articles on various people in the neighborhood.
They're like, we can't do that, Sammy. Sammy's like, yay! Isn't there like something where someone does that? Like one of the stories where he's like the newspaper.
That's Tony. That's GGY.
Yeah, GGY.
Where he keeps writing articles about people in the news and the thing.
Yeah,
and,
their free cable or whatever.
Yeah, he's like, our next door neighbor gets free cable. I think illegally, and he's like, please stop writing these
you're
articles.
You're gonna get our car. Did they get their car keyed?
They got their car keyed. But I love the idea of Sammy, like
Henry just like
Sammy with a little...
Sammy, please don't.
Well, he's like, I'm an investigative journalist. Henry's like, Sammy, don't do it.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't what got him killed as well.
That's the implication that it was.
Yeah, that like he was meddling, but he shouldn't have
something
been.
had happened with his dad, maybe either his dad's death or his dad was arrested for William's crimes.
Yeah, I think he was meddling, and William was like, "Stop!"
Killed.
And I think maybe that's what William was like trying to tell us with the policeman that comes back on his own.
Mm-hmm.
The policeman that's like, "Why is he here?" He's like, "I lived in this town and I've come to investigate," and he doesn't bring anybody, and William kills him. Like there's just a weird circumstance like that happens. There's just
talking about Officer Dunn.
Officer Dunn.
William's only a on-screen adult kill, right?
Yeah, I think he's the only one. Apart from the like, no, only. Yeah, I think so. I was like the night. I was like the night guard in the movie, and I'm like, no, that was the animatronics that did that, presumably, like William's behest. But
we don't see a lot of direct William on-screen kills.
The Officer Dunn one is a very direct, like watching the light leave his eyes kind of kill. Like it's brutal.
And it's odd because I'm going too far off. The Dunn is a character that.
Oh no, don't go into parallels in that.
No, not parallels. Right. He's described as a childlike character. He's the youngest character on the policeman team. He said he was the same age as all the kids that were
Yeah.
killed. So there, even him is a blurry.
They put him in the same time period as the kids. He's only
he
older
feels like
because...
unfinished business kid
Yeah.
rather than a proper like adult kill.
I agree. Drew made sure Liam got a copy. He thrust his latest effort in front of Liam over lunch. Liam had started reading casually, but at the time he was done reading Drew's article, he'd abandoned his turkey sandwich. He couldn't digest the sandwich and the article at the same time. As he took in each word, he could feel the heat rising at the back of his neck. How could Drew have written something so inflammatory about poor harmless Mr. Button?
Poor harmless Mr. Burton. How could Vengeful Spirit do something so terrible?
Yeah. I don't know if I might take a break here.
That's good. That's good.
I feel like we're at a good point. You know, like
we've only gone very far.
No, we've only done
sorry,
like a quarter.
everyone. This is
no. I'm not sorry. I'm like, if you're here. You know what you're here for. You know what you're in for. If you wanted like a read through or something, buy the audio book. I'm like, we're here to talk about stuff. We'll buy it when it comes out, but we're here to actually talk about stuff. Yeah. So I just think, like this is a good story. I can't remember it very well because I only read it one time.
It's amazing.
But I'm enjoying it.
I've read it a lot.
I forgot about all the stuff because I only read it one time, and when I read it, I was like, well, obviously these characters are these things. And coming back, I'm like, oh, this all just lines up even more with what I thought. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's good, and hopefully people enjoy it. We just like to talk about stuff, and I really like this book, and I thought, Shock would.
We'll finish it out. If you've read it before, and you're just seeing our interpretation on it, probably like what we've said so far, you're like, oh no, God, already. Yeah. But we'll keep going over it each of the...
Yeah, we'll keep going. I mean, we'll do more of it tomorrow. We'll probably have it all up in one random giant lump at some point anyway, you know what I mean?
This is the best story ever.
I don't know. I mean, it's not got enough William in it for me, even though it's William as an enemy. I'm like, leave my boy alone. He did nothing wrong. But yeah. Yeah, so like, I like this one. I think it's fun. But obviously I have ones that I'm like, what is William? The William stories. Like what we found and stuff. But this one's good.
I know. But I'm a big Vengeful Spirit fan. So
yeah, you're like, give me crumbs. Give me my crumbs. I need them. Yeah. So yeah. We'll do part 2 soon.
Yep, see you soon.